Hi, everyone. This is Mindy Egan, and I'm so excited to introduce to you the July 2025 release from Concord and Ninth. Let's take a look at this month's products. Welcome to the introduction to Beach Day Stamps and Dies. This bundle includes a small stamp set that has a lot of really great versatile summertime type of sentiments, along with a few silhouette images. And then the die set has a variety of beach umbrellas. So there's three different sizes plus a seagull, and we are going to walk through all of these pieces individually. So first, let's run through the sentiments. We have sending you some sunshine, have a nice day, which both of those do have a coordinating die for. Thinking of you, it's your day to shine and make today a good day. There's also silhouette of some seagulls and a heart. Now for the die set, we have three different size umbrellas. There's a large, medium, and small. You would start by cutting the base for the umbrella, and then each umbrella has a pieced umbrella to it. So it would cut four individual pieces in this case for the larger umbrella, three for the smaller ones, and you die cut it either out of a variety of colors of cardstock. Here I just did two different colors of cardstock, and you place them on top. They fit perfectly with the base of the umbrella, and you can create a rainbow, you can do monochromatic, lots of really different ways to switch up your colors for your umbrella. We also have some seagulls on here. So each seagull is its own die piece and it cuts out three different pieces. You have a base piece, a body, and then the wing. And then there's also a die for a sun for your beach scene. Now, for your beach scene, you can go really creative and elaborate, or you can go clean and simple. Now, here on my first card, I do have some little clouds in the sky along with the sun, but you can see my umbrella kind of tucked behind the fence there. That fence comes from the Secret Garden die set. And then I just ink blended an ocean line there, and I ripped my cardstock to give it that look of maybe the water washing up on the shore. My next card goes in a whole different direction and is very clean and simple. I just did my umbrellas. This is each of the three sizes, and I did them just some bright, cheerful colors, stamping a sentiment at the bottom. And then I have powder cardstock for my main sky piece. Very clean and simple and just very refreshing. But you could also use the dashed lines on that background for the umbrellas. And then here is one more beach scene that I created. There, I used the dashed lines embossing folder to add texture to my water. I have this kind of beachfront. This is more of what my beaches look like because we have all the trees in the background that comes from the Secret Garden set. Of course, I have my umbrella, those wonderful summertime sentiments, and then these seagulls are apparently enjoying a beach day. Now, even though I did a couple beach cards, I think taking that umbrella and flipping it upside down and filling it with flowers would make a great maybe wedding shower or baby shower card. So keep that in mind when you're playing with the umbrellas. That's a closer look at the Beach Day stamp and die sets available at Concord and Ninth. Welcome to the introduction to Boardwalk Stacks stamp and dies. This really fun set is going to allow you to create a carnival or boardwalk scene on either your card projects or creating an interactive pop up card. We have a small stamp set that has some sentiments that's going to go on our sign, like you're entering into the park. It also has a few other elements that we'll cover in just a moment. And then there are a lot of different scenes that you can mix and match with this carnival set. And of course, thank you to Concord and Ninth for giving us the inspiration on the back of the packaging. So first I want to go over the sentiments on this stamp set. And I really love this kind of carnival, like circus type of font that it has. It just really gives that fun summertime circus feeling or carnival feeling to it. So the sentiments are you are the best, celebrate, hello there, thanks so much, have the nicest day, happy birthday, hooray, you did it. And then there is the silhouette of birds, and then there's some dashed lines on there that is going to actually be some details you can add to your water. Now let's take a closer look at our die set, which I will have everything die cut out to show you, but I did want to point out some things on the packaging. So the circle is your Ferris wheel, you have your roller coaster, we have our carousel, which is going to be for our horses. We also have some of the carts for the Ferris wheel. There's the circle and star that you can put in the center of the Ferris wheel and the pole that goes behind it. You have your signs that I showed earlier. We have some clouds, little booths. We have an umbrella. You could either have a cotton candy stand or a popcorn stand. And then you have your boardwalk along with the fence. And then you have different elements like you have your steps, you have a hot dog, you have a teddy bear, an ice cream cone. So you can really mix and match these all together or just use a couple elements. So here is everything kind of all die cut out and some of the pieces I do have assembled. So first you have your umbrellas. The umbrella top is separate. You have a base for the umbrella and then also the umbrella top is what I meant by separate. There is a ticket. We have a teddy bear. You have your hot dog. Now I wanted to show you something with the hot dog. So there are a couple layers to this and I wanted to show you how you would actually kind of layer those together. So you have your base piece that you would take your hot dog and you would place that on top of your base. And then you have an additional piece that's going to go on top of your hot dog. So it really truly looks like a hot dog in a bun. It is super cute. I also wanted to explain the horses a little bit more too for your carousel. So your horses, it looks like there's 4 horses there, but really what it is there's 2 that have the tail and 2 that are just the body. So you would die cut it out twice, one from a colored cardstock, one from white, and you would layer the body over the colored piece. So that way your mane and the tail is colored. Then you have your fence there. You have a roller coaster that's all on one die. You have 3 different colors that you can use to color your roller coaster. Now, that pole or the post for my Ferris wheel, I think it's actually supposed to go behind the Ferris wheel, but I'm sure you could probably do either way, I guess. And then there is a little circle that goes in the center of the Ferris wheel, but I think it also works really well as a sun for your scene. So, the first project I wanted to share with you is where I created this really pretty boardwalk scene on an A2 size card front. Now, you can see my water there has the dashed lines. That's the stamp set, the dashed lines on that stamp set. I ink blended a sky. I have a sentiment from the beach day stamp set. And then I have the Ferris wheel there. That's my son's favorite. And I have a few different stands because that's what I would see walking around our carnival is the food stands or the games. And then we have our interactive card. So this is using the pop-up stacks die. This is the base I started with, and then I just completely filled it with all of these fun fair elements, which is really funny because the fair for us is actually in town this week. So it was really fun to create this. Now, what I would recommend is that you score your pieces. For instance, the sign there, you can see you are the best, my sign. You're going to want to score that before you attach it to the front of your card. I tried folding it afterwards. It doesn't work out very well. It doesn't look as clean. So you are going to want to have those items scored before you attach everything. And what I would do is just line that up with one of the base pieces that I go over in the pop-up stacks introduction video. I would line it up on a scoreboard, find the centerpiece, and then just use the base score line as a guide. So definitely recommend kind of scoring that before you add it to your project. So I kind of threw the book at everything on this one. I have the Ferris wheel, I have the signs, the different stands, the carousel, I have the boardwalk or the pier. It's got the stairs. I didn't add the umbrellas, and I actually forgot the roller coaster in both of my cards. But you could totally add the roller coaster to the top or the carts for your roller coaster to the top. And then these flatten down nicely. There's not a ton of bulk to it. So it fits inside of an envelope. You can send these off in the mail. If you want to add a personal message, you could either add an additional note or you could write on the back. So that is more, I would say, my traditional pop up card. The next one here, I kind of glitzed out. I thought it would be really fun to die cut out my roller coaster pieces from some silver glitter cardstock. And it really just changes the whole vibe, but it's so pretty. So you could see these stand up really nice on the tabletop. I even used some champagne foil cardstock for my like ice cream stand and even my popcorn stand that I have there. It was just giving it a whole different feel to the project. Lot of fun. This time I did add the umbrellas. I added some shrubbery to this, and the shrubbery comes from the secret garden. See, where I'm at, we would have different plants around the area just to add some greenery into the scene. And I think that kind of helps bring the whole thing to life is just by adding some of the plants and the shrubbery to your dock. Now, in the first pop up card that I shared with you for the sentiment, it says, "You are the best," is the big sentiment. And I actually have a smaller sign underneath that says, "Have the nicest day." But on this one, I just did the word celebrate. So I kind of left that smaller sign off. You can mix and match, do either or, and they translate so well to card fronts. That is a closer look at the Boardwalk Stacks stamp and die set at Concord and Ninth. Welcome to the introduction to the Charmed Stamps and Dies. This set really takes me back. I was definitely a charm bracelet person, and I love how this new die set you can customize your own charms, complete with three different style of chains and then a variety of charms you can add to your bracelet along with an alphabet so you can even customize it. So, first, let's take a look at the sentiments included on this set. We have, "I'm so lucky to have you. You are one of a kind. Hi there, friend. Congratulations. Happy birthday. Hey, good looking. You're so charming and you're all kinds of wonderful." I love adding the shine to my project by die cutting the bracelets out of a matte silver or matte gold cardstock, but you could also do it out of colored cardstock as well. Now, a couple of these chains do kind of work with the words. Congratulations kind of has that swoop. You're all kinds of wonderful, kind of has that little hilly type of motion to it. So that's really cute that those sentiments kind of go along with the style of the chain. So here's an up close look at the charms and the alphabet. And I feel like there's a couple different ways that you can do these charms just depending on the style that you like. So each charm, for instance, the butterfly charm, it has two dies or two pieces to it that are on one die. You have an outline and you have a base. Now, when you die cut out that outline, you're also going to have a negative piece. So you can die cut out your base piece for your butterfly and then add the outline over the top. So you can die cut that base from colored cardstock or whatever you prefer for that particular image. But now, what I like to do, or what I did for this, is I would die cut out the base from a white cardstock, or depending on the image, maybe I needed a colored cardstock. But then I would also die cut it out another time from the color of cardstock I wanted the negative piece to be. And then one more time, I would die cut it out of a silver matte cardstock. So even though I'm die cutting it an extra time, what I like is that the image is completely flush. I don't have any little dip from the outline. Here's a closer look again at those images. My heart is red, my outline is silver, and then the base piece is white. So, the first card project I have to share with you is where I customized this. So, I did the letters for my daughter and her name, which is Allie. That's her nickname. I have a small sentiment stamped at the top, "Have the nicest day." That is from the Boardwalk stamp set. And then I did my chain out of a matte gold. And then I added some things that I think she would like the star, the heart, the moon, and the keychain. The background for that was created with the Stay Cozy stencil onto sorbet cardstock with sorbet ink. My next card project is more on the simpler side. So I really just die cut out the base pieces for each of them. And I did them as just a solid gold type of charm to my bracelet. And I just have the chains kind of layered around at the edges of the cardstock. And that is using the powder cardstock as my base. And then, of course, stamping the sentiment and die cutting out with the coordinating die. I'm loving the nostalgic vibes that this set is giving me. That is the introduction to the Charmed stamp and die set available at Concord and Ninth. Welcome to the introduction to Cherry Nice stamps, die, and embossing folder. There is something that is just so super cheerful about cherries. So, we have a small stamp set with some sentiments. We have the coordinating die that cuts out some of the sentiments, plus die cuts out cherries, which I had a lot of fun with, and then a coordinating cherry embossing folder. So the embossing folder obviously creates all these cherries on your background. It's just a great way to add subtle interest to your card project. You could do a few different techniques with it. You could do some inking if you really wanted to make it more of a focal point on your card projects. But first, let's take a look at the sentiment set included in here. So we have that large, bold greeting that says, "You're cherry nice." We have smaller sentiments like, "Have a beautiful day." "You are the cherry on top." "Thanks a bunch." And "Hello, sweet friend." Plus, there is a little heart, a little flower image, and then just kind of some little X's and dots for some fun accents. Then for our dies, we have flowers, we have large cherries, small cherries. You can make them in a bunch, you can make it individually. We have two different size leaves, and then also the die cut word sweet. So for the cherries, you have two different layers. You have a base layer, and then you have your layer that actually cuts out the main color of the cherry, but leaves the opening for that automatic shine mark. You have two different size leaves, and they are on one die for each leaf. You have your stems if you wanted to make it a bunch of cherries, and then you have an individual stem, small leaves, big leaves, smaller cherries, everything you need in this set. And I like how the dies are combined so that you don't have a bunch of really small pieces. So before I dive into my card projects that I made with this set, I did want to show you what the embossing folder looks like. This is on Pink Lemonade cardstock. This was a card base I didn't end up using, but you can see the beautiful impression that that 2D embossing folder leaves. And then one other thing that I wanted to share with you was the flowers. So the flower die, it's just a single flower. When you die cut it out, you're going to have a center missing from the flower. So what I did is I die cut my flower out of white cardstock, and then I trimmed out just a really small piece of yellow cardstock. I believe I used Buttercup for mine. Trimmed out a really small piece and glued it behind the flower to give my center for that flower. Or you can use an enamel that would be super cute there too. So, the first card project I have to share with you is featuring that duo of cherries. I just loved that grouping. Now, my background, that scalloped piece, was created with the Simply You die. It's that nice scalloped edge with the stitching on it. That was die cut out of lakefront cardstock. And you can see I did some ink blending to my cherries. I loved adding that contrast to my cherries. I believe I did poppy and maybe sorbet or pimento for the background piece on that shine. And the die cut word sweet comes from this bundle, but the word oh so comes from the cherry turnabout stamp set. The next card that I have to share with you is putting the focal point more on the sentiment. So I have that large sentiment, your cherry nice, with just that small grouping of cherries down at the bottom. Here is where I used the embossing folder. So I did it on white cardstock just to add that really cute, subtle interest to the background. And I did some strips of cardstock that just matched really well with the cherries. So I have a few different reds there and then that aqua sky for a nice pop of blue. Now, this one was a really fun change up to my cherries. I did them out of honeysuckle cardstock and then adding some ink blending around the edges for that cardstock. And the background, I created kind of that radial centerpiece using a die from the Happy Rays Turnabout stamp set. So there are 3 cards to jumpstart your creativity. I just really loved playing with these cherry die sets. That is a closer look at the Cherry Nice stamp and die set available at Concord and Ninth. Welcome to the introduction to Cherry Turnabout stamp set. This fun turnabout is going to allow you to create a whole background filled with cherries. I mean, what could be better than that? But on top of it, this is actually a double turnabout. So you have a turnabout that's going to be for your actual cherries, and then a turnabout for your leaves and your stems. So you can mix and match your colors. There's also some sentiments included in this set, and these are kind of like that label type of look to them. So when you stamp it in any color, I happen to use black, it's going to create that label look that you would just trim out into a thin strip. So you have sentiments you can create like you're sweet, you're sweeter than a cherry pie, have a sweet day, or oh so sweet. So there's lots of different things you can do with those sentiments. Now, here's a quick look at some of the examples I created for some backgrounds. I really had fun playing with the different shades of pinks and reds for these backgrounds. I'll try and remember them all. That first one there, I did all of my cherries, I think in grapefruit ink. And then here I have a couple different mixes. I used maybe some pink lemonade. I also may have sorbet and brickyard and pimento. Pimento is definitely one of my new favorites when it comes to making the cherry background. Okay, so now let's put this into action. And today I'm going to use my Stamp Wheel 2.0 from Altenew to do my turnabout, which makes this really easy. Now, I already have a 6x6 piece of pink lemonade cardstock loaded into my stamp wheel, and I'm going to stamp or start with turn one. I am using pink lemonade for my first color. Now, what I'm not showing is that I am stamping each of these layers twice, mainly because my ink pads need a spa day. Now, the second turn is going to be using honeysuckle, which looks amazing on pink lemonade cardstock. And I think I actually stamped honeysuckle twice. So I did it for turn two and for turn three. And just by turning my top plate for my stamp wheel makes this really easy. I don't have to move my cardstock at all. It's all staying nice and in place on that sticky mat. The last color I'm going to use for my last turn is going to be using Brickyard. I didn't need to stamp this one twice because this one is pretty brand new to my collection and also looks amazing on the pink lemonade cardstock. So if you haven't tried colored cardstock yet for your stamping, I highly recommend it. Now, I removed my cherry turnabout and I lined everything up to do my stem. So, this is the second part of your turnabout. So, you're really getting two turnabouts in one stamp set. My first turn is going to be using Sprout ink. Again, that one I did stamp twice, mainly because Sprout is also a fairly light color, especially on pink lemonade. So, Sprout, I'm also going to stamp for turn one and for turn two. And then I'm going to be using parsley. I enjoyed kind of dipping back into the original colors, even though I really love avocado for a lot of my stamping. It was kind of refreshing to bring out sprout and parsley and give them some love. And then this is the last turn. Again, I'm using parsley for this. I just turned my plate for my stamp wheel to stamp that down, did not have to move my cardstock. And now I have this really gorgeous cherry background for a new card project. The first card example I want to share with you that I created is where I did tone on tone stamping for my turnabout. So here I used pink lemonade with pink lemonade ink. So it's all kind of monochromatic. And then I just did some white splatters in the background. I have honeysuckle cardstock for the background with the dashed lines embossing folder. I did my cherries from the Cherry Nice die set. I did those in honeysuckle to match my background and my card project, and then that pop of black for the sentiment. Now, I loved the entire release from July 2025 here, but I think this may be my favorite card I made out of the whole release. And this is again using the Cherry Nice dies to create that group of cherries. I have a circle vellum in the background, and then the turnabout that I have in the background is using the parsley, sprout. I think that may be grapefruit and then a pimento. Like I said, pimento was a real great ink to reach for the cherries. I trimmed the background just a little bit to leave a sentiment strip at the bottom. The sentiment comes from the Secret Garden Stacks stamp set. And then there's that strip of pimento cardstock for that separation. I had so much fun at creating these cards. That is an introduction to the Cherry Turnabout stamp set available at Concord and Ninth. Welcome to the Introduction to Dashed Lines Embossing folder. The Dashed Lines Embossing folder is a new 2D embossing folder, and it is going to create some subtle interest and texture onto your card fronts. Now, what's really great about this is you can use this in multiple ways. For instance, if it is going vertically, you can use it as raindrops on your card projects, maybe for a spring project. But if you turn it and use it horizontally, it gives texture to maybe a beach or your water to your beach cards. And that is exactly what I did in the first card project I wanted to share with you. This is featuring the Beach Day stamp set along with some other fun elements. But you can see where I used the dashed lines embossing folder to create texture for my water. In my second card project, I'm using it as just some subtle interest to my background. This card is featuring the Cherry Turnabout and Cherry Nice stamp set, but I thought it would be fun just to have that little bit of subtle interest in the background. But keep in mind, there are so many really fun techniques that you can do with 2D embossing folders. And that is a quick close up look at the dashed lines embossing folder from Concord and Ninth. Welcome to the introduction to Pop Out Stacks Base Dies. This is a four-piece set that's going to allow you to create an interactive card or a pop up card. So, this is going to stand nicely on your tabletop, but it also flattens nicely to fit into an envelope without a lot of bulk. Now, here are the look at the pieces that you would die cut out. So, I started with that half circle piece. Your base piece is going to be from powder cardstock. And then the three other pieces, these rectangles, I did out of pebble cardstock. Of course, you can pick whatever color cardstock fits your card project. Now, when you die cut these out, the die does provide score lines. And what that is two tabs on the end and a score line in the center. So each of those rectangle pieces will have that. I didn't show the smaller piece, but that one does also have the scored lines as well. And then we also have a center scored line on our base piece, and that's going to be our sky, our background that everything attaches to. Now, if you want to, you can take this over to your scoreboard and reinforce those score lines, but that's just kind of a guide for me. I'm going to fold that in half. And then for each of the score lines, I'm going to reinforce that fold with my bone folder. I really want to make these a nice, crisp crease. So for that base piece, we are folding it in. So you can see how I'm opening it like a book. Then we're going to take the other three rectangle pieces. You can see there's three different sizes to them. And you're going to want to fold over the flaps on each end and then also that score line in the center. So you will do this for all three of those rectangle pieces. Now, in your decorating, you are going to want to decorate these strips before you add them to your base. If you have anything that's going to go over that center scored line, what I would suggest is taking your rectangle piece, placing it on a scoreboard, lining it up with one of the scored lines, and then whatever piece is going to be kind of overlapping where the scored line is, just go ahead and add your own score line to whatever image you have over that area. And I'll show you some examples at the end. But here I have all three of these pieces. I have all of my folds kind of creased and ready to go. Now I have these in the order in which I am going to attach them. So you're going to take your base piece and you're also going to need a really strong adhesive. Now, in this case, I'm going to be using liquid glue. And how you're going to line it up is the center score line on your rectangle piece is going to line up with the center score line on your base. And you'll see this throughout the video too. I'm going to add liquid glue to the back of those flaps. If I got too much liquid glue on it, I would just kind of rub my finger over it because I don't want it to seep out on the edges. So once I have my liquid glue on there, I'm going to line up that center score line with the center score line on my base. My flaps are tucked in, so they're folded in, and I'm going to hold that down or place something heavy over the top. And you really want to make sure that this is adhered down before you start bending and really moving this. Now, this is the second rectangle piece. Again, we have those flaps folded in, added the liquid glue, line up our center score lines, and each one of these is also going to be flush with the bottom of your base. So you don't have to worry about if things are off at all. You just line it up with the center score line and the bottom of your base. Now, here I'm working on a glass mat and this was getting pretty slippery. So I took some post it tape and I'm just holding my base down with the post it tape so I could add that last layer. So this is the longest one, it stretches all the way across the front. You can see how it is tiered, so it gets smaller as it goes in the back. Again, each time I would recommend placing something heavy on it until your glue is nice and tacky and it has a good firm grip. Now, here is a completed pop up card. This is using the Secret Garden. Now, what I'm pointing out is I used pebble cardstock as that base piece in the back, and then I added the pebble stone so it looks like a little walkway to it with a darker shade of cardstock. And then I have everything layered. You always want to add your layered pieces or your die cut images to the rectangle before you attach this to your card. It's going to be really hard and tricky otherwise. And then that is the carnival version. So that one was the Boardwalk Stacks pop out. And what I'm pointing out there is another strip here. So this is included in the Boardwalk Stacks die set. And what this is your beach. So this one actually has a couple scored lines on the edge. You'll fold both of those in, and that's going to be an additional pop out on the front of your card. Totally optional. It does not have a score line in the center. So you are going to want to create a score line on there so it folds nicely. And you can use that by matching up the score line of your base with this particular die and using a scoring board. And this is going to, you can see, fold up. It creates that little bit of a ledge there. So it pops out a little bit more. But again, it does not add a ton of bulk. And these fold up nice, they fit in an envelope, and it just adds a little bit more to your card project. If you don't want it to have it be a pop out, you could just trim off those ends and add it straight to that base piece or your last tier that you added. I should say, if you don't want your beach to pop out. So the Boardwalk and the Secret Garden set available in the July release is designed to work with the pop-out stacks, but dig through your stash and see what other scenes you could build with the pop-out stacks. That is your closer look and introduction to Pop Out Stacks base die available at Concord and Ninth. Welcome to the introduction to Secret Garden Stacks stamps and dies. Now, this bundle is going to allow you to create a secret garden. You can do that with either the interactive pop up stacks that I'll be showing a little later on, or you can create a complete card front. So, of course, Concord and Ninth always provides us inspiration on the back of the packaging. And I'm going to quickly go over the sentiments that are included in this because although there is a small stamp set, these sentiments are really beautiful and I adore the font. So we have sentiments like grateful for you, I'm so proud of you, thank you, I love you, have a lovely day, you're too kind, hello friend, congratulations, you're in my thoughts, and I'm so happy to know you. Now, a lot of those sentiments fit right on that sign. Then you also have dies to create just some foliage or some hedges. We have potted plants that you can layer up for some beautiful color combinations. And I really want to draw your attention to the tree because this honestly confused me at first. So here is a look at the trunk of your tree. I know it looks a little weird, but that is the trunk of your tree. And you are going to line up these two pieces that I'm showing here. So I'm trying to bring this closer to the camera to really show you how those two pieces line up. So it really fits together like a puzzle piece with that bottom branch. And then those three circles allow the branches to kind of peek through the openings of the tree and also provides support for the tree as well. And then here are the die pieces, what they look like. There's the tree and the tree branch. We have some clouds, hedges. There is your different things for potted plants, a bird bath with some cute little birds that are also in there. And then we have the piece that goes behind your fence, which I think is beautiful. And you can decorate it with flowers. You even have this archway that you can add to the entryway of your little secret garden. Then you have some flowers that are going to be kind of peeking up behind a fence if you want. Now, that thick strip underneath those flowers is meant to be tucked behind, or you can trim it off. And as I mentioned before, those smaller sentiments that fit onto your sign, you also have some stones to create like a pebble walkway, and then also bricks if you wanted to create a brick wall in your garden. What I really love about this set is how it can be used for so many different scenes. So, my first card project I have here is going to be actually on an A2 size card front. And I have some trees in the background. I love having trees in my card projects. I have this pebble walkway. I added that fence with some flower bushes behind it and that potted plant set in the front. Now, I have no problem with potted plants on cards, but for the life of me, can't keep them alive in real life. So, I love these little potted plants and then adding clouds to the sky along with a simply stamped sentiment. Now, what you can also do with this set is use it with the pop up stacks die, which creates this fun pop up card, which is really, really easy to put together. Here, I really decked it out. I have those tall flowers kind of going up. You can see that there are three different levels. I'm kind of showing you all the different angles for you to really get a good idea of this. Now, what I recommend is this has got the three different levels. You want to create each level on its own before you add it to your base. And that'll be talked about a little bit more in the pop up stacks video. Another thing I recommend when you are decorating is try to keep your items away from the score lines. You can see my potted plant there. It didn't work out quite well. I did pop them up too with a foam square, but try to stay away quite a little bit away from that actual fold line. It'll just make everything lay nicer and look a little better. Now you can see in the very far back, I have a tree back there with some hedging. I have a brick wall. I love that pebble walkway and that fence that's just kind of starting off the whole scene. Now, I have another one of the pop up cards featuring the secret garden, and this one is a little more on the simpler side. This one, I kept the taller flowers off, and I just have a lot of hedging. I really love that fence in the beginning. These stand up so nice, but the bonus thing is that they also flatten. So you can flatten it, stick it in an envelope. It doesn't have a lot of bulk to it, which is really surprising considering how much die cutting and layering that I did to the card. There's not a ton of bulk. But you can see so many options to decorating the pop up stacks with the secret garden and adding different colors of flowers, rose bushes. Of course, I got to have my tree in there. I even have the little bird bath. Now, if I want to include a personal message, I would either add just a little note in the card with this pop up card, or I could write on the back, but this is meant to be something that can be put on display. That is the introduction to the Secret Garden Stacks stamp and die available at Concord and Ninth. All of these products are now available on the Concord and Ninth website. Happy shopping!